We're going to break down some Seahawks news and rumors, but first, who here is going to watch the Seahawks against the Chargers game in week 3 of the NFL preseason? The starters might actually play a little bit, so in theory, I think you guys should be watching. Help us keep track of who's actually going to watch this game by liking the video if you plan on watching the Seahawks take on the Chargers. Let's talk rumors here. First up, some extension talk and speculation going on around two of the Seahawks' top players left still looking for a big-time extension before the year begins. First up, Quandre Diggs, the other safety for the Seattle Seahawks. I thought he was awesome last year. The Seahawks got him as a steal from the Lions. He's more than lived up to the very limited draft capital they gave up to get him. But now Diggs is entering the final year of his contract. Although he won't be nearly as expensive as Jamal Adams, that is a lot to pay to safeties. Now, Jay Keeps over at ESPN 710 Seattle, I think is a pretty good insider for the organization, had this to say as it relates to Quandre Diggs about an extension. Quote, the reason why is when you look at Quandre Diggs, not only is he coming off his best season as a pro, but you talk about his age. He's 28. He's still young and healthy. When you talk about this defense and where you put the money and resources, it's been with your linebackers and it's been with your safeties. And Quandre Diggs is one of those key pieces for you. Now, I'm a big fan of Diggs. I think he's an awesome football player, one of the top, probably 15-ish, maybe 20 safeties in the NFL, somewhere in that range, which means he'll probably get close-ish to top 10 money. And that might be a problem with how much you're paying Jamal Adams. And to be fair, you also have Marquise Blair and Ugo Amadi who can play safety or nickel for you if needed. So in terms of the easy replacements, that exists on this roster already for Seattle. However, Diggs is a younger player, and that matters in the debate against Diggs and Duane Brown, his contract extension. Now, Brown has been what we call holding in, which is you're there, you're at the preseason, you're at camp, but you're not actually playing because you don't want to get hurt because you want a new deal. Duane Brown is, talent-wise, probably a little bit better than where Diggs is at relative to his own position. And I think he's more important to the team with the depth behind him, or lack thereof, I should say. But he's also 35 years old. He's in the last year of his contract. So I think Keeps is right when he says this stuff. Quote, they're looking at Duane, and the question isn't whether or not they love Duane Brown, and not whether or not they think Duane Brown is a vital part of their team and organization, but whether or not, A, he wants to continue playing football, and B, whether or not he is going to remain healthy to continue to play football past this point. That, to me, is only two reasons why I would think, as an organization, you would have some hesitation at Duane Brown. Because the evidence in terms of what we saw last year, he's still one of the best left tackles in the game. And as we saw last year, he's still one of the more feared offensive linemen. I think Keeps is right. Brown is still an awesome left tackle. But it's not just a short-term thing. You've got to look long-term as well. How much longer is Duane Brown going to be able to stay healthy and be an impact player for this team? I think that is a fairly significant question mark right now going around Duane Brown. He's older. He's not that young of a player anymore. With the depth in terms of the offensive line, is Stone Forsythe going to be ready after just 1 year? That's probably asking a little bit too much. Is Jamarco Jones going to be prepared to be that guy all of a sudden? I don't know if that's really the likely outcome for Duane Brown and Seattle long-term and short-term. That's what makes it so difficult. On one hand, you've got a great left tackle, but he's old and aging, but you also don't have anything really proven behind him. On the other hand, you've got a very good football player in Quandre Diggs, an impact guy who's able to help you out significantly, but you've got depth behind him if you wanted to move on. That makes it a little bit tricky. So who would you guys rather extend? Type DB for Duane Brown or type QD for Quandre Diggs? If you're only able to keep one of these guys long-term, who would it be? This question is the pinned comment on today's video. So get the ad break here on YouTube. Scroll on down and let me know. Now for some breaking news here on the Seattle Seahawks. Luke Willson, the longtime NFL tight end, longtime Seahawk, set to make his return to Seattle. Not quite official yet, but he is expected to re-sign with the Seahawks, which is a significant move here for Seattle as they bring in a tight end to help out with their depth at the position. More on the roster move that comes with this in a little bit. Now, Willson has spent a long time with the Seahawks. From 2013-2017 was in Seattle. Went to the Lions for a year, then back to Seattle. Got cut late last season, picked up by the Ravens, and now is making his third stint with Seattle, and I wonder how long this one will be for. Willson is a depth option at tight end and very much a fan favorite, and understandably so as well. But that doesn't mean he's guaranteed a long-term roster spot for Seattle. Now, maybe they go 4 tight ends. If so, okay, cool. But Gerald Everett, Will Dissly are the top 2. There's no doubts about that one. Those are the 2 guys who are going to be your key players in Seattle. Colby Parkinson, meanwhile, is coming off of his own injury, and that might take some time to recover from, which leaves Seattle thin with Tyler Mabry also injured right now. So Willson could step in right away as tight end 3/4 and be one of your back end of the roster guys at that position. Now, to make room for Willson, there was an extra roster cut required beyond the one that Seattle made, I should say several of them, on Sunday and Monday. They've now cut Pierre Desir, the quarterback who was fighting for a roster spot, was always a bit of a long shot, I think more recently, now ends up not making the team at all. This does get Seattle down to the 80-man limit, so if they want to sign Geno Atkins, they'll have to make another move to make room for him. This leaves the cornerback room as this: DJ Reed, Akello Witherspoon, Trey Flowers, Trey Brown, Demarius Randall as the more typical 5 outside guys. Gavin Heslop's played some inside and outside, plus Blair and Amadi in there at the nickel. So the cornerback room starting to take shape now for Seattle, along with the tight end room with one more preseason game left. So grade the re-signing here for me of Luke Willson and also the cutting of Pierre Desir. How do you feel about this one? A, B, C, D, or F? Get your votes in the comments section right now. Now, if you're a gambling man or woman like myself, you should do it with our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use the promo code you see on screen. That is Seahawks125. It'll get you a 125% deposit bonus. So far, betting against Seattle in the preseason would have paid off quite nicely. However, with the team set allegedly to play their starters, at least some of them a little bit, well, the Seahawks are now a 6-point favorite on BetUS. And is that a sucker bet? Is it not? I'm not sure. I am intrigued by the Chargers, especially if Russell Wilson and Geno Smith barely play in this game. I had to double-check that line twice. I'm like, wait, they got blown out twice. Yes, Seattle is a 6-point favorite in this one. If you want to bet on Seattle or against them, it's the preseason. It's okay. Do it BetUS. It's chatsports.com/bet. Don't forget that promo code Seahawks125. Let's talk Marquise Blair hype, because that is back once again. Blair has been hyped up by people around Seattle, and also Peter King over at Pro Football Talk, who listed Blair as one of his top under-the-radar breakout players. Now, I thought the breakout was going to happen last year. Blair had torn his ACL in week 2 of the season, and it never quite happened. Blair was one of 5 guys on this Peter King list. He was listed first, so we'll put him number 1. Rayshawn Jenkins, the new Jags safety. Rookies Trey Smith and Kendrick Green, guard for the Chiefs and center for Pittsburgh, respectively. And a punter, which, to be honest, almost invalidates the entire list because it is a punter not named Michael Dixon. I like Blair, though, and I don't know quite what the role will look like between he and Ugo Amadi. Will they use both of those guys and maybe put one of them at safety a little bit? I am excited to see how the usage actually goes down when we get to the real games, the stuff that ends up mattering. I'll list Blair as my starter at nickel there, but he can play nickel, can play safety, just like Ugo Amadi, who I like too. Oh, by the way, it's an interesting grouping in the secondary for Seattle. Still a little bit worried about those, corners, but I think the secondary in terms of safety and nickel are in a pretty good spot. So who do you guys want? By the way, one of my favorite weigh-ins here. Pick your starting nickel corner. MB for Marquise Blair, UA for Ugo Amadi. Get your votes in for me right now in the comment section. By the way, while you're down there, make sure you're subscribed. That way you don't miss out on anything here. got a ton of coverage for you guys on the Seattle Seahawks. The season's finally almost here, and that's going to continue moving forward. So if you haven't already, hit that big red button and subscribe. I did want to hit, by the way, the roster moves made by Seattle to get down to the 80-man roster limit. So if they sign a Luke Willson, more is going to have to come beyond that. They've cut defensive tackle Cedric Lattimore and quarterback, Alex Magoo. They've also cut, by the way, tight end Dom Wood-Anderson because he was bad in that game. They also, as we mentioned previously, have placed Ben Burkervin and John Ursura on IR. I want to spend a little bit more time here on the Magoo cuts and the Lattimore cuts, what that means. It means that if the Seahawks keep a quarterback 3, whether it's on the practice squad or active roster, practice squad feels more likely, that's Sean Mannion right now of the guys on the roster. I have never liked Alex Magoo. I'm sorry. I think Mannion isn't great either, but is a slight upgrade. In the end, it doesn't matter who the number 3 quarterback is. If Russell Wilson goes down, the season's cooked for Seattle. Defensive tackle room now. Again, Geno Atkins, heavily linked to the team. We mentioned that on yesterday's video. With the release of Lattimore, it kind of starts to take shape a little bit. I wonder if Gerard Hewitt will end up being a practice squad guy for this team. Rasheem Green, LJ Collier have inside-outside flex. Brian Monet feels a bit better about his spot going forward. And we'll see about Robert Nkemdiche. Talented, but has never lived up to it. Of course, if Geno Atkins comes aboard, would probably come with the roster spot that could potentially, probably not, be saved for Nkemdiche.